So for those of you who haven't been to every week of our online meetings, we've done two sessions of this already. In the first two sessions, we've given you some tools for reading Old Testament narrative. So we looked at the big theme and the purpose and the shape of the story. And we looked at how to work out what a book or a story is all about, how to work out why it's told, and how to work out how it's told. But what we're going to look at today is the fact that there's a big difference between using these tools to just understand a story and using them to help us understand what God is saying to us through that story. So the thing about this is that there's a theological principle that underpins everything we've been talking about, and it shows us how to put these tools together and use them properly. And that principle is that Old Testament narrative is revelation. It's not just events. So Old Testament narrative is there to teach us something about who God is and what he's done and his plans for humanity, and also how everything comes together in Jesus. So these aren't just stories with morals. They're actually part of God's revelation of himself and of his plans to people. And these tools aren't just there to help you get inside the mind of the author like you used to do in high school English. They're actually there to help you work out what God is revealing to you through the story and what difference that makes in your life. Now, in order to do this, we actually need to put all three of these tools together. So we need to work out what the book is about and why the story is told and how it's told. Because this gives us the subject and the purpose and the main points and also some of the details. And that helps us to understand what God is saying in a much deeper, richer, and more relevant way. Because in a story, especially accounts of real life people like we've been looking at in the last few weeks, we actually see living, breathing examples of what God is revealing to us. So a few weeks ago, when we looked at the story of Abraham and Isaac, we felt the tension between God's command to sacrifice Isaac and his promise that through Isaac, Abraham would become the father of many nations. We also felt the emotion as Abraham faced the prospect of having to do this seemingly unthinkable thing. And we cried out against the injustice of such a command. But then as we got to the end of the story, we marveled at how God provided a way out. God provided a substitute, and how that ultimately pointed us forward to Jesus. And so these stories actually make revelation about God deeply personal, because we learn things about God and we see the difference that those things make in the lives of real people. So what we're going to do in a few minutes is we're going to pull these things together for a listening activity. We're going to read Daniel chapter 6, which is our Bible reading for today. It's the story of Daniel in the lion's den. And as we read that, we're going to think about what this passage teaches us about how to live in Babylon when you belong in Jerusalem. But to make this easier in the short time we have, I'm going to give you the big theme of Daniel and the purpose of the whole book. So the big theme of Daniel is living in two cities. And those cities are Babylon, where the Jews have been exiled to and where Daniel is living himself, and Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is where they belong. That's the city, the capital city of the promised land. They belong in Jerusalem, but they're living in Babylon. And the purpose of the book of Daniel is to explain and to show how they should live over here in Babylon when they actually belong over here in Jerusalem. And each chapter of the book of Daniel contributes to that. But before we do the listening activity, I'm going to hand over to Tim for the first part of the talk. Thanks, Tim.